Welcome back to Tekin Builds. Thank you for watching. My name is Ty Campbell, and we are still working on our Pro-Line Pro-2 Street Eliminator project. Last week we got some pretty good top speed out of our car, 62 miles per hour with our Pro-2 5800 kV 4-pole motor. Now we did have to throw a lot of timing boost at it, and I really don't recommend doing that on a 4-pole motor. Things just get commutating too fast, the ESC can get lost. We end up seeing a little bit of misfiring above the 47 degrees of boost that we were at. But we did hit 62 miles per hour. I am happy with that. I think we can go faster. Definitely have been bitten by the speed bug with this car. It's still cold outside, but that's not gonna affect going for top speed. So I think what we're gonna do is we're going to swap in our Redline Gen 3 4.5 turn motor. The 4.5 turn is a pretty popular motor for Street Eliminator cars. So we're gonna throw this in with the exact same settings. I'm not gonna touch anything. We're gonna have same gearing, which was 27 tooth pinion on an 86 tooth spur gear. I said it was an 87 last week, it's actually an 86. Same 47 degrees of timing boost. We're just gonna swap this motor straight over and take it outside with a fresh charge 2S and see if it's faster. I have a feeling it's probably going to be. I think we can see some speeds up over 70 miles per hour. So let's get this motor swapped out and then we'll take it outside and do a GPS speed run. Quick motor swap, our 4.5 turn Gen 3 is now swapped in, so that Pro-2 is out of here. Like I said earlier, we're gonna keep everything exactly the same. ESC settings, not gonna change the gearing. We're just gonna throw a fresh charge 2S in this car, take it outside and see what kind of speed we can get out of it. All right, so 47 degrees of boost on the 4.5 turn Gen 3. This is the first test run. See what kind of speed we get. Keeping the camera rolling, this is real time. I did not edit any of this, so this is our actual top speed. See through the window. That looks like a 66 to me. Pull the body off real quick and check. Woo, yeah, 66. So, 4 mile per hour gain. Power cap is definitely hot. That thing's taking a beating. So we picked up 4 miles an hour just by swapping our motor to a 4.5 turn. We're gonna check the data logs. I'm gonna show you how to do that on the PC. And this is a really handy feature because we'll be able to see our RPM, whether or not it actually plateaued or if it was still climbing. If it was still climbing, we're probably still way over geared for top speed. But still 66, that is awesome. I think we can hit 70. So we're gonna try dropping our gearing a little bit and we'll see if that helps out. All right, so I went down to a 22 tooth pinion, left everything in the ESC exactly the same. So let's see what kind of speed we get out of this. This is 5 teeth lower than the 66 mile per hour run. right, felt on par with the other runs. Take a look. $64 miles an hour. So that was 5 teeth lower than the 66 mile per hour run. And I also geared up 1 tooth from that when I went to a 28 tooth pinion. So I'm gonna show you that run real quick, and then we'll check out the data logs comparing all 3 runs. Our 66 mile per hour run, this 64 mile per hour run, that run where I hit 65 with the 28 tooth pinion, and then, so actually it'll be 4 because we're gonna check out the Pro-2 run also and kind of compare them all. So let's go check them out. Okay, it is different day. It is really cold out. It's like 30 degrees out here. I said I was gonna gear down, but I actually geared up. I was able to cram a 28 tooth on there, so we're 1 tooth higher than the 66 mile per hour run. So I'm gonna start the GPS and we'll see what happens. Let's see what happened. Didn't feel super fast. Looks like 65 is what we hit on that pass. So gonna have to check data logs, but that might be about all we can get out of this right now with that particular setup. So, well, we are definitely making progress with this car, and I'm learning a lot of things along the way. The first thing that I'm gonna say is the Pro-2 that I had in this car before was just flat not geared high enough. I think that motor can take a lot more pinion on it, so we need a smaller spare gear to finish testing that setup. I'm not done with that one. There's a lot of things I like about that motor, like our battery voltage is more stable, the RPM curve is more aggressive, and it's shorter, so we're getting to top speed a lot faster, and that makes sense because that motor has a lot more torque than our 4.5 turn Gen 3. When we went to the Gen 3, I left everything the same. It was fairly close, but you gotta remember that these motors have different KVs from each other, so gearing them the same is really not a good way to compare the two of them. I just wanted to see how they directly compared, and I pretty much confirmed my suspicions that the 4.5 turn motor needs to be geared quite a bit lower than the Pro-2 motor so that it can spool out all the way. We're gonna check out the data logs, and we have 3 runs on our 4.5 turn that we're gonna check out, and then a Pro-2 run that we're gonna also check out and kind of compare all of them. So I'm gonna give you a little crash course in how to use our data logging feature, and it's gonna show you exactly what I found that I didn't like with the 4.5 turn setup. Yeah, we hit 66 miles per hour when we had a 27 tooth pinion on it. We went up 28 tooth and it was 65 miles an hour. I probably just didn't hold it wide long enough to let it spool all the way out. But there were a lot of things in the data logs I found that I did not like. The ESC was getting way hotter after the hit, so it was actually climbing temperature. We were pulling the battery a lot lower than we were when we went to our 22 tooth pinion, and our 22 tooth pinion was 64 miles an hour. I actually ran it again after I videoed, and I held it wide for longer, and I hit 65. So going down to a 22 let that motor spool out a lot more than it was with being over geared, and I definitely confirmed my suspicions that we're over geared because we gained a whole bunch of motor RPM. The motor was able to breathe, the ESC ran way cooler. So I'll shut up now, we'll check out the data logs and I'll show you exactly what I found, and we'll run you through them. We've got our 4 runs we're gonna take a look at. The data logging is an awesome feature, and you actually can use it on Android mobile devices. The data transfer takes a little bit longer than it does on a PC, and obviously the screen's a lot smaller, so it is a little bit harder to see, but if you wanna check things out in the field, you can. Today, we're actually going to take a look at the data logging part of the software on the PC, and that will actually let us blow it all the way up to full screen size. I'll be able to show you guys everything that I liked and didn't like about each of our runs, and I'll also show you how to overlap them so you can directly compare 2 different runs. So let's go check it out. Let's plug this into the PC, and we've already got a HotWire in the car, so we can just plug our USB into that. That'll give us access into the RS Pro brain, and we'll start messing with the data logs. All right, so let's check out our data logs. We need the Tekin HotWire app installed on our PC. If you don't have it, go to teamtekin.com and grab it off the website. Make sure that you plug your ESC into the HotWire and then plug the HotWire firmly into the USB cable. Plug that into your PC. We will be connected and ready to go. So we open up the HotWire software. The portal pops up, goes away because we have an ESC plugged in, starts reading the settings, is gonna bring up our dashboard right here. We don't need to mess with anything in here. We're checking out the data logs. So this button is our data logs. Open this up. This is gonna open up the Tekin Data Analyzer. To see what's on your ESC currently, you go up here to Data, hit Download, and that's gonna download everything that is in there right now and show you all of your different runs. A run is every time the ESC power is cycled, so you might see 8 or 9, 10 runs depending on what is turned on in the data logs and how fast it filled up. I've already saved my files, so we're just gonna open them up. The first one we are gonna check out is the Pro-2 run, geared at 2786 with 47 boost. So this is our Pro-2 run right here. We're gonna go to display, change the resolution to medium, and we will move so we can see our full throttle area and our ESC temperature all the way out to the end to where I turn the ESC off over here where everything shuts off. So our Pro-2, we hit 62 miles an hour. Right here we are at full throttle at this plateau level, and you can see our RPM curve. It is pretty aggressive. It climbs fairly steeply and then sort of tapers off towards the top. So when we're at full throttle, our peak RPM on our Pro-2 motor was 37,669, so almost 38,000 RPM. That's right in line with where I think that motor would be. And our voltage line is fairly steady. So you can see that it does dip right here when we actually get to full throttle and the car's pulling pretty hard in the RPM range. And then it actually starts to recover and stabilize around 7.2 to 7.3 volts. Our ESC temperature is cool as a cucumber, 102 degrees, that's nothing to worry about. And it looks like it heats up to about 112. So not a whole lot of ESC heat gain after the pull. That's awesome. That means that we are not in danger of damaging anything. Now we'll move this real quick and we will open up our 4.5 turn run where we were slightly over geared. Now to do this, you go up to Data, click on a new window. We're gonna maximize it over the top of the old one. Hit Display, go to Color, change it to Transparent. Now we can see our Pro-2 run back here that we're gonna compare a 4.5 turn run to. Open File. So we open up our 4.5 turn run. We'll go to Resolution and change it to Medium so that we can better line these up. All right, so we've got our full throttles pretty close to each other. This is our plateau. You can see that our voltage line on the 4.5 turn motor is definitely lower and a little bit more sporadic than the Pro-2 motor. And that's just because those motors are very high strung, they're aggressive, and they react well to boost, but they are pulling on the batteries. You can see our RPM curve down here is quite a bit different from Gen 3 to Pro-2. This is our 4.5 turn right here. It's more of a shallow increase in RPM, just a big dome, and our Pro-2 is a lot more aggressive. That makes sense. The Pro-2 is a 4-pole motor. It's gonna have a lot more torque and get to peak RPM faster. The other thing I noticed was our ESC temperature was a little bit higher during the run, about 10 degrees or so. But the biggest thing is that at the end of the run, and this is after I had already let off and drove back and the ESC was sitting idle, it jumped all the way to 160 degrees. And you can see on our Pro-2, we were only 112 degrees. So big difference in ESC temperature. The cap was also smoking hot on the ESC with the 4.5 turn. I cut the shrink wrap off because it's not a good idea to insulate it. I should have thought about that before I did the build, but I did cut it off and the cap temperatures have come a lot further down. Now we can check out our 22 tooth pinion pull where we were still hitting 65 miles per hour. So we will kill the Pro-2 and we are going to open up our 22 tooth pinion run with the 4.5 turn to compare it to this 28 tooth pinion run right here. So new window. All right, now that we've got these two lined up, remember we were only hitting about 40,000 RPM when we were over geared at the 28 tooth pinion. So with the 22 tooth pinion, we can see that our RPM curve is a lot more aggressive, a lot more like the Pro-2, which is nice to see. And our peak RPM, 48,266. So just a hair over 48,000 RPM. So about an 8,000 RPM increase in our motor just by dropping our gearing 6 teeth on the pinion. Our voltage line looks a little bit more stable. Still not quite up to where the Pro-2 was, but it looks better than being overgeared for sure. Our ESC temperatures are about 5 degrees different from each other down here when we're on full throttle, and then at the end of the run, it only shot up to 128 degrees. So that's about 32 degrees cooler than being overgeared, and we were still hitting the same speed, so that's awesome stuff right there. I like seeing the cooler temperatures. The cap was a lot cooler. The battery wires were a lot cooler. Everything was just better. We're more in a safe zone and we're not in danger of blowing up our ESC. So that's pretty much how to use the Tekin data logging software. It's real neat for being able to compare two runs together. I highly recommend checking this out, especially if you're building a drag car. This is gonna tell you everything you need to know if you are severely overgeared or if there's still more left in your setup that you can go for. So start on the low side of things with very conservative settings and then work your way up incrementally from there so that you don't blow up anything. All right, so I made a couple more changes to the car and I have some pretty high hopes that we're gonna break 70. So let's fire it up real quick, start the GPS and see what kind of speed we get. All right, here we go. Fast, let's check. Oh yeah. 72 miles an hour. All right, so super stoked we finally hit over 70. I actually think this setup probably has a little bit more in it, but I'm not gonna push it. The ESC is nice and cool, the cap is cool. Yeah, I can put my fingers on this motor. I think we could run this thing up and down the street quite a few times with the way it's set up right now, even hitting speeds over 70 miles an hour. So super happy with that. I'm gonna go inside and check out the car, make sure nothing's coming loose. I think we did it, we hit our goal, so awesome. Well, I would say that is an excellent note to end our Pro-2 Eliminator build series on. 72 mile per hour top speed, but I gotta admit, that top speed bug, I feel the need for more and I might have to try to go for it. I wanna give a big shout out to my friends over at Proline Racing because basically this whole car is Proline. We have a Pro-2 SEB chassis, we've got an Octane body, we use Proline's body mounts to fit our body. We've got Proline wheels and tires, and they are Hoosier drag slicks. We got new Proline Pro-Spec shocks on this car. I also want to thank Matt and the guys over at MIP for hooking it up with the X-Duty shafts for this car. That really just totally gives me confidence in the rear end, and I don't think we're going to have any trouble with those drive shafts. Another thank you to Jay Kendall over at SOR Graphics for hooking it up with some of the decals on this car. Really finished off the look, so thanks, Jay. I also want to thank Tim Smith for basically just putting up with me bothering him every other day while I've been building this car. It is getting really cold outside. I think winter is rapidly approaching here in the mountains of central Idaho. So I'm probably going to put this car to bed here pretty soon. Hopefully next year I'll get it on an actual drag strip so that we can start tuning for those 132-foot times, because going for top speed has been a lot of fun, but it's a completely different game than tuning the car to be fast from here to there. So we'll see how that goes, and hopefully we'll have a couple more videos on that in the future. If you like the build series, click like. Make sure you check out parts 1, 2, and 3 of the build so you can see how we turned this short course buggy into an asphalt missile. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next videos. We're going to start working on an axial UMG 10 here pretty soon, and after that we're going to work on an MST rear wheel drive drift car. So I got some fun stuff lined up for the winter. Share with your friends so they can check out Tekin builds, and well, I guess that's it. I'm Ty Campbell, and I'll see you next time.